What is up, everybody? I'm your Legendary Commander, and welcome back to Metro Exodus. Today we're going to talk about the Tikhar versus the crossbow. Now this is not going to be a stat-for-stat review, this is going to be a real-world use case of this weapon. Now I can only go off of what I have used the Tikhar for and what I have used the crossbow for, but as I've used both, I can tell you how I feel about the two, and I'm going to start off with a preference. I have a preference for the Tikhar. Not because the crossbow is not an amazing weapon, because dear God, when you get to use it on people, whew, crossbow all the way. But the Tikhar has been my favorite weapon since the beginning of the Metro series. Great gun. Now I'm going to do a review on it and tell you which one and why I find that the Tikhar, in my opinion, is the better of the two guns. While both weapons are absolutely amazing, the Tikhar has one advantage over the crossbow, and that is the ammunition supply and technically the most effective number of enemies that it can kill before you run out of ammo. The Tikhar has very cheap ammunition, which costs 10 wrenches for 10 bullets, whereas the crossbow is one crossbow bolt for 10 wrenches. Now with that said, the crossbow ammunition is retrievable, but you have to be able to retrieve it. If not, you're out 10 wrenches per shot, which means if you have missed one or two times, that's 20 wrenches. Especially if they've gone up into the ceiling or somewhere where you can't necessarily get it back. Whereas the Tikhar's ammunition, if you miss with 2 or 3 rounds, it's not the end of the world. You can still make your kill, and perhaps even a second. Then followed up by its ammunition supply, the crossbow holds about maybe 24 rounds, give or take, while the Tikhar holds up to about 60. This leaves up to, as long as you crank the Tikhar back and you are effective with your Tikhar, you can kill up to about 60 enemies before having to make new ammunition, whereas the crossbow you can only kill 24. Now with that said, both weapons are meant to be silent. That is why I consider them this way. In a freak out moment, the Tikhar is by far not as good as the crossbow. The crossbow, when you're freaking out, you can shoot somebody in the chest, and more than likely that enemy is going down. Sometimes they don't die, sometimes you have to put a second one in them, but a good majority of the time, the crossbow will take down an enemy if you have to panic at all. You turn, he's there, you shoot, he's dead. You turn, you shoot, and he's there, and you have the Tikhar, you're going to be putting a few rounds into him. But if you're good at getting headshots, again, the Tikhar is going to hold its own. So if you're an effective shot, the Tikhar is actually still the better weapon. Another problem with the Tikhar is that the Tikhar can run out of air. While you can crank it up for additional firepower by cranking it over into the red, and depending on which piece you use to keep the air in or keep it constantly auto-loading, that could be a bit of an issue. I personally preferred to keep the air tight seal, that way I could get those overcharge shots for when I had to shoot a little longer distance than normal and maintain that firepower. Now that does lead to some awkward moments where you do completely run out of air and you still have ammunition in the gun. However, if you are reloading and repumping consistently with your reloads, you shouldn't have that problem as long as you only maintain as much as a 30 round clip. The bigger round drum, which reduces stability, in that case you're going to wind up having more rounds than you do have air, and you might want to change up your setup. Again, I like the airtight seal, so I prefer the other one as it also helps maintain stability with the smaller clip. Touching back on firepower, this weapon's ability, the Tikhar, is absolutely abysmal, whereas the crossbow again has some of the best firepower and actually has a much better range than the Tikhar. The Tikhar is more of a mid-range weapon, whereas the crossbow is absolutely much more built for the longer range shots. What I found was actually that the crossbow could actually hit targets much further away, maintaining its striking power, whereas the Tikhar would absolutely lose that ability. Also, the Tikhar's accuracy would fall off a little more at excessively long ranges, whereas the crossbow, where I did have a few misses where the arrow went somewhere that I have no idea, generally the crossbow was on target for those very, very long ranges and took the guy out with just the one hit. If I'm going to put a scope on either of the two weapons, it's going to be the crossbow. The crossbow definitely feels like it can make that range shot with much more effectiveness, whereas the Tikhar, it kind of feels more like a mid to short range weapon, and so I'm only going to put a reflex side on that one. The crossbow can have about 8 rounds loaded with the rotary clip installed. That means it can put out a lot of firepower, and it has its own explosive arrows to attach onto it. Those explosive arrows do a fairly good job. However, I really never got to test them, and nor did I ever feel the need to use my explosive arrows. However, I did go ahead and use the Tikhar explosives. they were, again, abysmal. They really didn't do much. It took at least 2 shots to light somebody on fire, and sometimes they didn't even die when they got lit on fire. Both forms of explosive ammunition are absolutely expensive, and they're just not, in my opinion, worth producing at all, as the standard ammunition does the job pretty well. If you were trying to light something on fire, the Tikhar might actually do a very good job with the multiple capsules it can fire. However, I would more than likely rely on the crossbow with its explosive arrows, being that they're actually more powerful. So one thing I would definitely say is if I'm going in stealth, I would definitely take the Tikhar. The Tikhar is much better about taking targets out individually. The crossbow is good about if you aggravated the whole group, well, you really don't have to fear too much about being overwhelmed. The crossbow's packing enough ammunition that you know you're not going to have to make more. And if they get up close, well, you can pull the arrow right back out of them. So I would go in stealth with the crossbow only if I knew that the enemy could very well detect me. And in that case, I would go ahead and bring the crossbow out, just because if I'm going to get detected, I want to have a weapon that not only that I can retrieve the ammo for it, but that I can rely that I don't really have to stop and make ammunition for it, and is actually going to have the stopping power that I need when the enemy is right up in my face. So probably the most important thing about these weapons, though, is that the fact that their ammunition can be made in the field at all times, basically giving you an unlimited supply up to the point of the resources you have on you. So that is my review on these 2 weapons. Like I said, I have a preference for the Tikhar, but that is both weapons and their pros and cons of each one. So you might wonder why I don't mention the railgun in this. Well, particularly because the railgun, it's so late in the game that it almost doesn't matter. You can't go back and have the railgun at the beginning of the game. Is the railgun any good? Well, yes, it's actually a fantastic weapon as long as you get the first shot. After that, it starts to lose effectiveness as its charge drops, your firepower drops with it, and it turns a weapon that was once a silent killer into something much, much different. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe. But you all take care, and I'll catch you next time.